and I am the founder and CEO of No Brainer Foods, Mac Sweets. About, gosh, how old now? About 16 years ago, I was maybe 17 years ago, I was diagnosed with MS, unfortunately.
Mm, wow.
And I use food to heal. And I created a raw foods company called Two Moms on the Raw.
Great.
We left that sweet, beautiful company in 2016, and we started No Brainer, which has now evolved into Mac Sweets, which is a functional zero sugar sweet line. In fact, we
Right.
should definitely do a giveaway with you guys because it's a perfect complement for what you offer.
Yeah,
Okay,
I love that.
yeah, Jordan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Mason, it's nice to meet you finally. I've been a big fan of your guys' products for a long time here. But yeah, I'm
Thank you.
Jordan. I, like Sherry, use food to heal. I was diagnosed with celiac disease my freshman year of college,
Mm,
and ever since then have been on the lookout trying to find the best products that taste just as good as something that I previously never had to worry about eating. And long story short, I found Sherry after she won the Best Product Award at Nosh, and stayed in touch, stayed in front of her, and then officially convinced her to allow me to kind of get into the day-to-day operation side of things. And that's where
awesome.
we are today.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
So
and
great.
this
we'll,
is Jordan's idea, was to start all these YouTube series with amazing founders. So he turned me on to Soozy's, which is a delicious grain-free, like dessert kind of like muffins, and you have I noticed you have bagels too, I think, and certain
We do.
other treats which you can talk about. But
Sure.
just for everybody to know, the reason I met Soozy's is you guys have impeccable customer service.
Thank
And
you.
I'm like, wait a minute, I have an ear. And I said, hey, can you come on our YouTube series? And you
Yeah, happy to. Happy to. That's great.
yes,
Thank you for the background. It's helpful.
you know what? It's Gus. All right, you guys, you can introduce yourself. I'm listening. I'm just gonna put the dogs outside. Apologize.
Oh no, not at all.
just maybe quick high level kind of your story, why Susie's, how that started, and then we can go from there.
Oh yeah, how
Sherry
it
and I
all
like to
started.
just kind of bounce around with popcorn and types of questions. So super light
Yeah, sure.
atmosphere here. Yeah.
Yeah, no sweat. So we started the company about 3 years ago,
Wow.
and it was established as not just a gluten-free company because those had existed already, but a grain-free company. We felt that while certainly gluten is a key offender in a lot of people's health issues, gut health, et cetera, that if you substituted gluten for other high carbohydrate grains, that you weren't necessarily doing the overall health, any good or really much better. So for us, we tried to take it another step and took it to grain free. But even that wasn't enough. We wanted to make sure the entire label was clean. And for a while, people talked about that in terms of paleo, and the products are sort of within that paleo philosophy, but really just more about being nutrient dense, absolutely no chemical additives, nothing that we felt shouldn't be in your food and ultimately in your body. And one of those things that we see a lot of in the gluten-free world are things like xanthan gum and guar gum and those types of things,
Mhm.
which, people are arguing, well, how bad are they really? Can you tolerate them? And we just think, why even have this debate? Let's give you just as the natural, ingredients in as clean a state as possible. And doing so in products that are very difficult generally to do that in, things like these baked goods, which require several ingredients, and especially to get shelf life and mass market, generally have a lot of different additives and things that we'd rather keep out of our food. So that was the vision. We launched with muffins, quickly added donuts, and that was the business for really the
Donuts.
first 2 years. And then this summer, we had a really exciting summer, even though it's been a difficult year with COVID all around, but launched a new line of SKUs with Whole Foods nationally, which included clean loaf of bread, bagels, and then shelf-stable cookies. So all of the
Congratulations on
products,
that.
yeah, all of the products prior to this summer had been frozen because that's really the only way you get the shelf life you need. The bread and the bagels are frozen, but the cookies were shelf stable. So that was a whole new part of the store for us. And also the bagels and the cookies were our first fully plant-based vegan products. So we've got quite the assortment now of 13 SKUs and are starting to grow into more retailers. And every SKU, every product we launch fits within that same philosophy, what we kind of internally deem clean label, only the best ingredients, and nothing that we think could create any health issues whatsoever. So
That's so wonderful. I'm your consumer. So
yeah.
how did you land national with Whole Foods within the 3 year? I mean, you're a young company. How did that?
Yeah, I mean, we had been in one region of Whole Foods with our muffins and donuts. They had done quite well in the
Okay.
Northeast and the Northeast region. So
That's
that
that's the greatest region to be in to
yeah,
get the
yeah.
eye of global. Yeah.
Exactly. That kind of started the dialogue, and from there we were able to just, further discussions, and ultimately decided that these were products that should exist on shelf, not just at Whole Foods, but in every market. And again, comes from, this all came initially, from sort of my dissatisfaction with gluten-free products that I was seeing on shelf at the time, which was in the form of Udis and Glutino and these types of things. And not to disparage those brands, they were there first, very early, and certainly were catering to a need. But on a personal level, my diet had evolved past just being gluten-free, like I mentioned, but actually trying to eat healthier, eat foods that would actually support my health and make me feel better and stronger. And again, while gluten-free is a nice attribute, if it's loaded with sugar and carbs and is using, processed ingredients or more processed ingredients than we like, may not be doing our bodies any good. So,
So great. Yeah. So
yeah.
were you in the food industry to like how did you get in all this?
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I originally started my career in finance, and then during business school, I did a tech startup. So that was my first foray into entrepreneurship. And, I
So
felt that with
exactly
food,
lines up with grain-free donuts, right?
exactly right. It was the natural evolution. But no, when I became an entrepreneur, I realized that unlike a normal 9 to 5, I mean, everybody has some, amount of stress or challenge in their life, regardless of what they're doing. But when you become an entrepreneur, not only do you have to deal with that, but you also have to show great energy and positivity in the face of that every day. And if you're eating foods that aren't supporting that, it gets difficult. If you're having
Yeah.
sugar highs and crashes and,
Right.
running out of gas. And so I just naturally started to get more into my health when I became an entrepreneur. And then as a function of that, started to see that there were a lot of things that were missing in the grocery aisles that I would like, and again, these types, everybody knows, generally by and large what they should be eating, and, eat organic produce. And if you're going to eat meat, eat grass fed,
Right,
people
right.
generally have these rules, and that's fine. And I eat that way. But when it came to the more fun items that, life meant to be enjoyed, it doesn't all have to be just lean meats and vegetables. That it'd be nice to have those types of items without really kind of messing with my body, without feeling like I'm going off my path.
Yeah, it's
And so,
beautiful. So you
yeah,
guys literally sat. So by the way, your partner, can you explain a little and then how you sat down to develop these recipes? Because it is a really clean, beautiful
thank
flavor.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we pride ourselves on having the cleanest, ingredient deck in the store, really anywhere in the world, for the items we're selling. I mean, we've seen some people who are trying to do, something on the same level, close to it, but never seen anything cleaner. And so we always start with, we want to taste the best and we want to have the cleanest ingredient deck, bar none. And we think if we offer that as a value proposition to the customer, then, we should do well. To answer your question though, yeah, I met my partner Susan about 7, 8 years ago now, and at the time she loved to bake, and she was working on Wall Street as well, and would bake gluten free, but a lot of the things still had a lot of sugar in it. And again, we're high carbohydrate load. So for me, that wasn't that exciting. I'd have one and say, okay, that's good, but I can't eat 8 of these things over the course of a
Yeah,
week.
right.
She said, well, why not? I said, well, it's not the way I eat. And so I kind of challenged her to come up with a slightly different recipe that, again, brought the sugar down and used things like coconut flour and almond flour in place of the rice flour and the corn flour. And she said, I think I have a good recipe for that, and came up with one, and blew me away. And, as an entrepreneur, you have to keep taking the next step. You don't go from step 1 to 1,000. You take one step and then another step and another step. And so for us, that meant contacting, we had someone we knew who was pretty entrenched in the food industry, who had become somewhat of an advisor and had worked with Susan in the past. And we brought him in, and, then we found a co-packer, and again, just kept taking,
Taking the
the
small steps. So you
series of
do
steps.
co-pack, do you co-pack one co-packer for all your SKUs or do you?
We have 2 right now.
Okay.
And it's hard, obviously, to find co-packers who fit your specifications and can work with you and have capacity, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, we're good covered, well
Oh, that's
covered with 2.
great. Well,
Yeah.
you've done an amazing job. Yeah, go ahead, Jordan. Do you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say one of the things I applaud you guys most, and one of the reasons why, I mean, me as a gluten-free consumer respects Bonza, is that they really entered in kind of
Yeah.
similar to what you were just saying, Mason, about like we're not going to be the gluten-free alternative, right? We're going to be kind of we don't want to be known as the gluten-free donut, right? And like
Yeah,
they didn't necessarily view themselves as like the gluten-free iteration of pasta.
sure.
And I'm curious kind of how do you see that playing out going forward now that there's more and more people that are kind of doing this grain-free thing, and do you
Mhm.
guys have some kind of idea of an innovation pipeline that you're going to try to mask some of the more modern consumer trends?
Oh, great
Yeah,
question.
yeah, we do. I mean, look, grain-free as a concept is still in its infancy, and
Yeah,
my brother's a celiac. I'm pretty very intolerant to gluten. And my brother doesn't see the world in terms of grains and grain-free. He sees the world still in gluten and gluten-free, right? And if
yeah,
it's gluten-free, he can eat it, and if it's not, he can't.
Right.
And so I've gotten this question too before about grain-free as a concept. And for me, it's not about is the trend grain-free. I don't really think it is. I think what the trend is eating real food in its most natural state, that is supportive of human health and your body. I
yeah,
think that's actually the trend. And so, people talk a lot about keto, and we're not a keto company, obviously. We use the term keto friendly on some of our products because, again, it's a pretty low carb load. But, keto is one of these hyper trends. Paleo was before, and that's okay. We talk about, we encapsulate different philosophies and ideas within these trends and within these phrases, and that helps people identify what's going on. But having said that, for us, for Soozy's, we believe the more timeless long-term trend that's always going to be in vogue is the one that we're following, which again is bringing people food in its most natural state.
The most nutrient dense.
Nutrient dense, as little processing as possible, nothing, no additives you don't need. I mean, there's different ways to define it. Again, sometimes people use the word clean. And of course, we do say gluten-free, we say grain-free. I mean, we want people to understand what the product is, but yes, we view this as a way for consumers to indulge in some of the most, what are considered decadent products without, again, kind of throwing them off their overall, health plan or eating plan. The fact that it happens to be keto friendly and gluten free tends to be more of the
Exactly.
attributes around that.
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, so I
No,
totally get what you're saying. With Two Moms in the Raw, we were actually the healthiest at the store, but it was a raw foods, which was very limiting.
Sure.
And so yeah, so people crave the baking, the cooked. So you've really mastered it. Jordan, do you have a
Yeah.
question?
yeah, no, I was gonna ask more on your guys' branding and kind of
Oh
the
yeah, great.
evolution of that. Obviously the name Susie's. Sherry and I were talking before this. We were like, are we talking to Susie? Like, nope, we're actually talking we're talking with Mason. So
Right.
I'm curious
Oh, I'm
how
sorry, I didn't say in the beginning. Mason in the spotlight. Right.
Not at all. Not at all.
yeah,
Susie's
so
in the spotlight.
I'd love to kind of hear like the evolution of that, and yeah, I mean how it became where it is today.
Yeah, and it's a really great name. So yeah, how does
Well, yeah. So there is a Susie. My partner's name is Susan. Susie was her nickname,
Got
and
it. Okay.
the brand is really an homage to her and her coming up with the original recipe. We joke sometimes I was like her muse, and sort of my vision. This is the way I was eating. This is the way I was living. But she had the sort of the skills in the kitchen to make this dream come a reality. So yeah, we function as a team, and everything we do, we were in the kitchen together, testing it and trying it. And again, I think in terms of what we're trying to establish is really confidence with our customers. We have a very close relationship with our community and our customers. We want to do everything in our power to continue to engender that confidence, because at the end of the day, we want someone to know if they're buying a Soozy's product, they have complete confidence in these are the best ingredients we could source, the highest quality, to bring it to them at a reasonable price,
so
and that
when
there's
you
no.
engage, are you interested in your consumer going to the store? Are you interested in them shopping online? Where's your focus right now, or is
Well,
it?
we've been mostly retail focused. We're frozen business up until the cookies, so now we're branching out, and frozen online is a little bit more difficult, but
Oh, definitely.
we are starting to do more online. In 2021, we have some big plans for DTC, but the business has been mostly retail focused. Yeah.
So yeah, so your marketing efforts, everything that you've have
Correct.
done has been drive sales to the shop.
Predominantly, yes.
Yeah,
Got
but
it.
I will say that you're impeccable. Like the note, the emails you send, preparing me for my order, the
Oh,
dry
thanks.
everything. I mean, it was very
Oh,
well.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I have a great team, and again, we think it's important, obviously, because we're building a brand, but we're really, I joke sometimes, we're building a coalition of the willing, and
Yeah,
my hope is that by
I like
you
that.
getting this product and eating it, you show it to more people and tell them, not just so that Soozy's can be successful. Of course, that's a part of the plan, but we really think that people are better off eating this way. If you're going to
right.
have a muffin, if you're going to have a donut, you're going to have one of these products, we think you will be better off and your health will overall be better off by eating one of our products versus certainly a conventional alternative and even some of the other, more alternative gluten-free stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I was wanting to kind of talk a little bit more for founders that are in the process of raising capital. I know you guys have gone through that process a
Yeah.
couple times here, and kind of curious. I mean, if you were to take away now that you've done it, I guess a couple of times now, one of which AF Ventures, I think they're an awesome brand.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to entrepreneurs that are maybe raising that seed round, and then what have you learned as you're kind of, I assume, kind of raising that next round at some point soon down the line? Kind of what that.
I mean, look, it's really like most things in life that, it's like most things in life that, are relationship based, from the standpoint of fit really matters, and so, it's a numbers game for sure. And it's not just about, let me go find money, but it's about, let me find money that comes with, if you can get it, certainly strategic direction, but also people who share your vision of the brand and what you're trying to do. The last thing you want is to get investors on board who aren't part of that mission, don't want to be part of the mission, or don't really see the same vision, because you have people, paddling in different directions, assuming we're all in the same boat. So, that sounds nice, but then the reality is there are people who need capital to fund operations, right?
Right.
And so there's what you want in a perfect world, and then there's sometimes what you need to do to continue to operate. And so it's, fundraising is never easy, even when it is easy, it's still, you realize that it's more challenging and took more time than you thought. And so the best advice I can give is you just have to get out there. You have to use your network. You have to give, throw a lot of emails out, talk to friends, talk to family. I mean, it really, it matters, how you come into a potential investor's life matters, and so obviously if you can get an intro, that makes a big deal. And I've heard investors say, look, if you can't figure out a way to get into my inbox, then it's not going to work anyway, right?
So,
Like, meaning,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're really young as a company to have.
yeah,
So how did, because we were, I think, 8 years in before we took on investment with Two
sure,
Moms. We are looking to do it sooner with Max Sweets, No Brainer.
yeah,
And I feel like we're relatively young, 3 to 4
sure,
years, and now we have just a year with these Max Sweets.
yeah.
Excuse. So was that the initial plan? Was always to get investment? And that's amazing that you were able to get that with. I mean, that's incredible to get.
Well, thank
such a
you.
young- yeah.
Well, look, there's an important point here, which is, you need to know who you want to be when you grow up, right? And so I have friends in the food industry who self-funded it for the first 8-10 years, and now they're cash flow positive, and they may raise a little bit of money, and they may not, and that's great. That model worked for them. They've retained more equity. 8 or 10 years is a long time. It's a
Right.
big chunk of your life, and now they can run it if they want as a lifestyle business, and there's no pressure to exit. And again, that's fine. They're happy, and they maybe, for them, they did it the right way.
So
For us,
yours was, were you, but what I'm saying is to convince an investor at such a young age of a company, to me, that's amazing.
well, I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
it's certainly not easy, but we were lucky. We had a lot of traction pretty early. We had big retailers taking notice. And, the feeling was, okay, there's a vision here, my vision, Susan's vision, that this becomes a very big company very quickly, and obviously we're trying to make that happen every day. But that's the kind of a vision that an investor wants to see. And so that's what I mean when I say getting aligned, right? That's
Right.
really matters.
Right.
So an investor comes in, they say, okay, how fast can we grow? And we say, well, this is how we're going to do it. And it looks to line up. The fact that you're small all of a sudden doesn't matter as much. You know what I mean? What matters is that you both see the way that this can grow, and you're on the same page about how to make that happen and the capital required. So again, you're right. I mean, I appreciate it. That's very nice of you to say. And like I said, starting out, it wasn't easy, but we were lucky to find good partners who shared that vision. And look, especially with this type of investing, I say right place, right time, but it's also right product, right place, right time. And if someone loves the product, that helps. I mean, it's not everything, but it's like a big chunk of it. And if they don't, it may not matter. So, there's some
really
people who just,
and your branding is great. It's spot on.
Thank you. Yeah. We invested a lot of money to get to first base. We self-funded a good chunk of the company to get to first base by making sure we had a brand we were excited about. You know what I mean? So it wasn't, we didn't show up with a pitch deck and a dream in an investor's office. We were already on shelf with a big retailer, showing good sales, so there was traction.
Yeah. And I guess one of the questions that I always am kind of always wanting to learn a little bit more about is kind of what number you go in with in terms of valuation. And kind of curious, I mean, you have a background in finance. How did you guys originally think about that number when you were going into AF Ventures' office? I mean,
look, it's a negotiation, and obviously at an early stage level, value is in the eye of the beholder to a degree. So, people will put multiples on it, and they try to get, as scientific about it as you can. But again, there are people, when we go out to raise money, there are people who say the valuation's too high, the valuation's really fair, the valuation's too low, right? Who's right, So, there's not a great answer to that question, unfortunately, Jordan, but I would say that the best answer would be that it's finding the balance that works for everybody, that's rooted in some type of methodology that people can live with, right? So, and it depends on the investor. There's some who will just say, look, this is the multiple I pay for a business like this, period. And I'm not paying $1 more. And then there are other people who say, okay, I get it. It's early. A lot of this is on the come. Let's see what happens. And, what can you guys live with? What can we live with? Right. So it's usually some combination of all those things. But I'll be honest, just as a side note, for us, it was never really a big deal or a sticking point. It's not to say valuation doesn't matter, but I was always much more concerned about getting the right investors in and having the opportunity to build a really big business. And it's the old adage, you'd rather own a smaller piece of a really big business than a huge piece of a non-existent business, right? So.
It's great. This is a great insight, Jordan, into the whole investment.
No, I know. Yeah, no, I think that's one of the pieces that we yeah, no, that's one of the pieces that I think has been interesting about this conversation more so than any other one. I mean, to get into the weeds here a little bit more, but Mason, Sherry, I don't know if you have any more questions.
No, I think we should go for our
try it. Yeah. So our final question we always ask Mason is, if you had an extra hour in the day, where would you spend it and why?
If I had an extra hour, I mean, there's two answers. Idealistically, I would spend it, in a quiet contemplation garden somewhere, thinking strategically about the business. In reality, I'd probably just spend it trying to get through my email box, which is just a monster. But yeah, I mean, look, the challenge of running a smallish CPG company is pretty daunting. Just because, especially when you have 13 SKUs in market and we have a small team, you're just wearing so many hats, and just the day-to-day operational load is a lot. And what happens is that when you're just playing catch up, sometimes when stuff happens within the day, you don't have the opportunity to kind of sit back and really think more strategically. So, that's time I really value. I try to do it on the weekends, but if I had another hour, I would probably put it into that. And just being, putting a lot of rigor around, our marketing, our branding, where we are, strategy, et cetera, because it's, sometimes you have to set the course and then you're on the course and then you just put your head down and you work. And it's all about execution, but you always want to have those check-ins and make sure, are we on the right course? Is there another way to think about this, et cetera? So yeah, if I could get that extra headspace, I'd probably use it that way.
So you are the $1 million winner, because you are the only person that we have interviewed so far that actually said they would work. Everybody else is like, I'd like a bike ride.
Yeah, everyone's like all fitness. Yeah.
Well, I will
spend time with my kids.
Well, I will tell you then in full candor that I prioritize working out. and I prioritize exercise,
Yeah,
and
me
I
too,
meditate
by the way.
about almost an hour a day.
Yeah, me
And
too.
these are things for me that are non-negotiables.
Right.
In my former life as an entrepreneur, I would let work seep into that. And, you know, what matters is how you feel is actually in some ways the most important, because if you're not right, you don't have the energy and the excitement to do what you're doing, you'll burn out eventually. It's human nature. So
I totally agree with you.
I put a huge priority on that, you know, and that means different things on different days. But because I'm gonna, you know, at 9 or 10 o'clock tonight, I'll be on my email, you know, and on Sunday morning, I'll be, you know, I'll be doing something work wise, and that's okay. I don't mind it, because sometimes I'll go play tennis at noon on a Thursday. You know what I mean? Because I want to get outdoors and I want to sweat and move around. So the schedule is different, and also with COVID now, I think everyone's schedule has gotten a little upside down. But yeah, for me, having those outlets is crucial. So I don't need an extra hour for that, because that's for me kind of falls under self-care. And if you're not taking care of yourself, eventually you'll just burn out. You won't be good to anybody. You won't be good
So I
to the
think the
company.
next thing you'll probably do is write a book about entrepreneurship, and
Maybe.
because you really, I agree with everything you said. This has been amazing, Jordan. I really feel like he's just like, you know, it's exactly the answer people are looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mason. I really
thank you so
appreciate
much.
you
We
coming
are a
on.
customer. We have 2 boxes in the freezer. My husband eats 2 muffins a night. He takes a blueberry, and he takes a chocolate brownie, or whatever flavor it is, double chocolate muffin.
Yeah.
And we will have to try your other products for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. It was great to be with you both today, and you know, look forward to staying in touch.
And I apologize for the muff up. We've had a few, you know, it's been kind of crazy with these interviews, and so Jordan was sending me emails with attachments, and I sent your attachments to somebody and their attachments to you, whatever. But we'll get it right, Jordan. I'm sorry about that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
so nice
Mason.
meeting you. So
No,
nice.
great meeting you both. Thank you both.
Take care.
All right, take care.
Take care.
Bye.